It was a bleak autumn morning in London. I had just gotten out of my routine meditation when all of a sudden, some friends of my host visited. They were very excited and told us that His Majesty, the Emperor of Ethiopia, had heard of my experiential yoga teaching and had expressed a desire to see me, a yogi from India. Haile Selassie, thrice great, from the house of Sheva, was also called the conquering lion of Judah, the same title held by King David in the Bible. Selassie was 225th in descent from the line of King Solomon. Soon we were driving along in my disciples' Austin, Cambridge. Our guides, who had established contacts with the House of Ethiopia, were very happy to be party to this great meeting. I was told to keep this meeting a secret because His Majesty was a guest of the royal family of England, and for all practical purposes, to the African and Rastafarian religious communities, he was thought to have left his bodily abode in 1975. However, this was untrue, as I recall meeting with him 7 years later in 1982. Our guides took us to the residence on Great Portland Street. We stopped the car and entered a mansion-like home. There were two robust and ruddy men, all smiles, sitting at the reception. Scotland Yard detectives, I presumed. My guess was right, as they simply told us who they were when we introduced ourselves. He was obviously given the highest security of the land, since the king was a guest of the now late Queen Mary. The gentleman led us up a broad red-carpeted stairway to a simple but tastefully decorated parlor with soft green furniture and carpet. The green room of the palace, I said to myself. I was used to all this green and pink rooms which were there at our own house in India. The butler came and asked us if we would like something to drink, but we declined. We waited for Haile Selassie, the king about whom my grandfather had told me many stories. It is said that Haile Selassie was a visiting board member of the League of Nations. This was the international organization before the United Nations had formed. During an international meeting, a miscreant drew a pistol to shoot the king. He did not move, but steadily looked the murderer directly in the eyes. Consequently, the man dropped his pistol and was led away by the security guards. After about a 20-minute wait, His Majesty the King entered. We all stood up and bowed. He responded to our bows and bade us sit down. He was accompanied by his grandson, a very impressive person, 7 feet tall and about 25 years of age. He was introduced to us as Prince Yaqub, pronounced Yaqub, as in Hebrew. He had completed his military studies in the National Defense Academy in Pune, my hometown in India. When pleasantries had been exchanged, cakes and pastries eaten, His Majesty arose, and so did we all, according to the royal protocol. He went into his inner chamber and requested me to follow. As we sat opposite one another, I had the opportunity to have a deeper look at him. He was about 90 years of age. His eyes were aglow with the experience of life. His stoic head was held steady on his sturdy shoulders. His hair was curly and white as snow. When I peered into his heart, I saw his truly majestic and lion soul. Oh, what a sight! What a man! Truly great men do not have to show what they are. They are what they are, I thought. I was 38 years of age then. He asked me if I could perform a havan, a fire ceremony for him and his family. I consented to do so, but told him of the smoke which may cause a fire alarm to go off. He made all the arrangements and also informed the Scotland Yard security guards. And so we got underway preparing for the sacred fire ceremony. I told the king that in ancient times, around 7000 BC, a great king from India called Mahandata had performed a stupendous havan in the Congo basin in Africa. This was mentioned in the Purans, of course. It's a metaphorical saying that the sand in many parts of the Congo resembles holy ash. However, it is interesting to note that it does appear that sand is the remnant of an ancient fire ceremony performed by the king Mahandata. He showed a great interest in ancient history and told me that there was a trade via the Silk Road between Ethiopia and India before Cleopatra's time. It was during the time of the Queen Sheba of Ethiopia that Africa learnt a lot of the spiritual law and spiritual techniques from India. This was later passed on from Ethiopia to the Egyptians. I was deeply intrigued to hear this from the king, who himself was a deeply spiritual and divine soul. In India, we call such a soul a Mahatma, or a great soul, like Mahatma Gandhi. Such souls visit our earth rarely. Many interesting things I learnt that day from this great king sage, who reminded me of the ancient king Janak of the Ramayana. I told him that Bhim, the Pandava prince and cousin of Lord Krishna, had married a girl called Hidamba from Ethiopia. As we talked, all the preparations for the fire ceremonies were made. The clarified butter, the rice, etc. I then proceeded to perform the havan for the welfare of humanity and for spiritual progress to all. The sacred flames of the fire ceremony danced to the chanting of mantras. All those present were engulfed in the holy ambience as we rejoiced in the Spirit of the Lord. After the sacred ceremony was over, His Majesty was very touched. He and the Queen then showed me what they needed to show me. As I passed through their bed chamber, I looked at him and his majestic bed. I thought it to be made of platinum or white gold, but did not ask him. The royal bed was so huge with its curtains that I mistook it for another smaller chamber. Upon his showing an interest in the science of yoga, I gave to him the yogic Hamsa breathing technique, which he practiced successfully. 6 months later, he telephoned me in India and told me of the spiritual well-being and sound sleep he was able to have after practicing the technique.